Okay, welcome back. Again, this is Mr. McCullum. We are continuing on compare and ordering rational numbers. We're on page 273 in your book. So far, we've talked about what a rational number is in the last video. We talked about what a common denominator is. We even talked about what a least common denominator is. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring you back. We're going to go backwards a little bit here, and I'm going to show you a couple of things. Let's just say, let's take this one out, C. I'm going to show you a faster way to do this. Let's just say that if I have 1/5, and I'm trying to compare these two, okay, and then I have, say, 7/50. I want to know which one's greater. If I do a little bit of cross multiplication, if I could try that again, cross multiply. What do I mean by that? Let's do. So what I would do is I would go and I'd say, okay, 5 times 7, and I'm going to write that out. 5 times 7 equals, and if you already know, write it out, 35. Remember the 35. And then 50 times 1, 50 times 1 equals 50. So I'm going to highlight both of those, my 50, my 35. Now you're looking at sides. So is this side that is going to include the 50 and this side that is going to include the 35, what's larger, 50 or 35? And 50 is larger, so that means that 1/5 is greater than 7/50. Now you could have done that with the 6 times 7 and the 9 times 5. You could have done that with the 16 and times so it's a negative times a negative, and the 10 negative times a negative. So make sure you get your negatives and positives all taken care of. That'll work in that too. This one's a little bit more difficult because of the negatives, but that's one way to do it versus the LCD way. So if you like the LCD way, continue. It works perfectly fine, changing the denominator. But if you like multiplication and you can do the cross multiplication, it works too. But right now, though, we have a nice word problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to highlight what I feel is the most important. This is kind of what I do. So I want you to do the same. You know, when you look at word problems, you read them, and then you highlight what you feel is the most important. So in Mr. Wang's class, 20% of the students own roller shoes. In Miss Trevino's class, 5 out of 29 students own roller shoes. In which class does a greater fraction of students own roller shoes? Well, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take my highlighter out, and I'm going to say, okay, in Mr. Huang's class, 20% of the students own roller shoes. Miss Trevino's class, 5 out of 29 students own roller shoes. Which is greater, or a greater fraction? Well, first of all, not all of them are fractions. In one instant, we have 20%. In the other instant, we have 5 out of 29. Okay, so there's a couple of ways that we can do this. One way is to change everything to a decimal. That's probably your best way. Okay, so in order to do that, if I have a percent, if you know anything about percents, 20%, well, 20 is always out of 100, so I'm going to write that out. I didn't even put it here. 20 is always out of 100. Okay, and so if I put 20 hundredths, well, that's going to be equal to 0.20, which is just 0.2. 20 hundredths. You could reduce this by 10. You could do that too, and then you got 2/10, which is what I have here, or 20 hundredths. So we learned that in our last lesson. That works, but it's just 0.2. We're not done yet. We need to change 5/29 into a decimal. So what are we going to do? Well, you can take your 5 and you can divide it by 29. Okay, some of you are going to probably stick it into a calculator And when you get it into the calculator, you're going to get a rough estimate of a non-terminating decimal that's just going to go on 0.1724. I don't need all of that. I only need like the first few items here. I just need this part right here. Because I could tell you straight out, just the 2 and the 1, which one's larger? Yeah, the 0.2 is larger than 0.1. Therefore, 20% is larger than 5 over 29. So who has more students that own roller shoes? Yeah, it's Mr. Huang's class. He has more. So you're going to want to write that out. Say Mr. Huang has more because this is going to be greater than. Okay, it's your turn. Okay, you're going to do this problem. You're going to do it pretty much the same way we just did it. Okay, example number 4. This is where we get into the order of rational numbers. We're ordering them up. What comes first? What comes second? You always got to read it. Order the set 3.44, pi 3.14, 3.444444, from least to greatest. Okay, so that's the key, from least to greatest. In other words, what's the smallest one here? What's the largest one here? First thing you need to do is to make sure they're all decimal. You don't have to have them all decimal. You can have them all fraction too, but you have to remember all the fractions have to have the same denominator for you to compare them. It's just easier to compare decimals. So if you don't have a decimal, you're going to go ahead and you're going to make them into decimals. But we're lucky here. We have all decimals. The only thing we have to worry about is pi, because we have 3.44. Remember, pi is 3.1415926, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. If you're not sure, use your Google and it'll tell you out. So it's 3.1415. I don't need to go any farther than that. 3.14 and 3.4444 forever. I'm just going to put a line over it. Well, we look at these, and you're always going to look at the very first. Look at all the tenths first, and you can start to organize these up. Okay, 3.14, 3.14, they're going to be right next to each other. Okay, 3.4, 3.4, they're going to be right next to each other. But right away, these are greater than the pi and the 3.14. Okay, so if I was going to set this up, it's going to go 3.14. And then because after the end of this is going to be 0, I know that I look over here, this is 1, so I know this is going to be greater, 3.1415. So basically that's pi here. And then between these two, this is 4444 forever. The next. Okay, so this is 0. So what's going to happen there? Well, that one's going to be smaller than this one because this is going to be 3.4444 forever. So this is a larger number because it has more 4s in it. So this is going to go 3.44, and then it's going to be 3.4 with a line over it. Then you just double check your answer. Put some commas in here so we can see the 3.14, it ends. 3.140. This is 3.141, so it's larger. 3.440. This is 3.444444 forever. Okay, least to greatest. Your turn. Okay, but this time you have a percent. Got to change that to a decimal. And you have 1/4 and 1/5 to change into a decimal. Go ahead and do that. Put them in order from least to greatest. And come right back. Okay. Okay, last example, then you can go on and do your homework. Okay, so we got this quarterback here. His name is Nolan. Nolan is the quarterback on the football team. He completed 67% of his passes in the first game. He completed 0.64, 3/5, and 69% of the passes in the next 3 games. List Nolan's completed passing numbers from least to greatest. Okay, very, very similar to what we were doing before. We're still ordering rational numbers, but this time I got a percent, 69%. Sorry, 67%. That's the first one. The 69% comes last. 0.64, 3/5, and then our 69%. And you can highlight them too, if you go through your highlight. And you have these in your book. You could always highlight this in your book too, if you feel like it, or you can write it out. List Nolan's completed passes from least to greatest. Well, I got to change this. Remember, this is 67 over 100. So that's 0.67. So that's my first one. Very close to 0.64. 69%. Well, remember, that's 69 over 100. Because remember, our percents are always out of 100. So 69, well, that's going to be 0.69. So I could put the first 3 in order. I know that 0.64 could go here. And if this is 67%, I know that it could go here. And I know that this is 69%, so it could go here. I'm just missing one. I need to figure out where 3/5 goes. So what do? Convert it into a decimal. You guessed it. 3 divided by 5. Well, put a decimal in there. 5 goes into 30. 6 times 5 is 30. Ooh, look at that, a terminating decimal. And since that's going to be 0.6 or 0.60, well, that's going to be the smallest, isn't it? So that's really going to go here. So my 3/5 are going to go here. Okay, so these are my ordering rational numbers. I have 3/5, 0.64, 67%, 69%. But of course, on 69%, 67%, and 3/5, I'm looking at the decimals to put them in. But what I put in is what they actually gave me. Okay, your turn. Go on, do your homework, and have a good day.